Hello, and welcome yet again to another installment of our Quirk Evolution series. For those of you joining us for the first time with this one, what we tend to do here is hone in on some of the lesser focused and or appreciated young characters of My Hero Academia and speculate potential ways in which their quirks may improve. However, with this one, we'll be abandoning that lesser focused aspect because we're talking about the third most popular character in the series, Todoroki Shoto. And I tried my best to keep this video as spoiler free as possible, but for the sake of being thorough in our analysis, there are a few minor things that I let slide. And I don't go into detail with them really, and so for me they're kind of admissible, but ultimately that call is up to you. So yeah, light spoiler warning for this video. But getting back on task. Now, thanks to his quirk half cold, half hot, which I prefer to call icy hot, Shoto is an emitter type capable of producing ice from the right side of his body and fire on the left. Now, not only is this one of the strongest quirks amongst the first year students, but it is also one of the most balanced. And I'd certainly hope so, considering it took Endeavor 4 attempts to succeed in his quirk-based selective breeding. However, because his quirk is so impressive, it's pretty easy to overlook the strides he's made over the course of his first year at UA, unlike most others. For the longest time, Shoto refused to utilize the fire aspect of his quirk, which in of itself led to a sort of inequity between the two attributes. And this decision of his is one that he is still feeling the effects of to this day. For both Endeavor and All Might to believe Shoto's fire to have the potential of surpassing that of his father's is incredible, because once again that only encompasses half of his power. However, all of this insane potential isn't without its caveats. More than anything, the thing holding Shoto back the most would have to be his temperature regulation. Using either side of his quirk in excess could be detrimental to his health to the point of possible fatality. And in order to offset this, a perpetual balance must be maintained, which pretty much just boils down to the fact that his fire heats him up, whereas his ice cools him down. And striking this balance has only gotten easier as he is now capable of emitting both sides of his quirk at once. But with all that in mind, let us commence the quirk evolution process. Now, the very first thing that comes to mind would have to be for us to take a page out of Dabi's playbook in the form of blue flames. With the solid belief that Shoto's fire could surpass that of Endeavor's, and with him at one point pushing himself to his current utmost limitations and managing to produce fire on par with that which is typical of his father, I have no doubt that such a feat would be at some point obtainable for him. We've seen Endeavor produce blue flames in momentary bursts, however, I'd imagine doing so for prolonged periods of time would more than likely be taxing on his physical health. But seeing as how Shoto has access to a powerful cooling agent in the form of his ice, he would probably be able to produce blue flames in a manner far safer than that of any other character. Now, something else I'd love to see from Shoto would of course be better control over his quirk. And I find Endeavor to, yet again, be an incredible point of reference for this. And that's because his quirk usage is just that masterful. The sheer fact that he is able to clad his body in flames at all times during his hero work, and maintain such a thing subconsciously, regardless of his own mental state and such, is just absurd. And Shoto definitely needs that. And to do so, I'd propose a sort of veil technique, and two of them at that: Fire Veil and Ice Veil. One department Shoto definitely struggles in would have to be his dealing with dedicated close range combatants. Deku, Bakugo, Stain, and Tetsu all being close quarters threats that he has had difficulties handling for one reason or another. Now, considering Shoto once had the left side of his body covered in ice, I figure that regardless of the left and right stipulation he currently has in place, he'd be able to cover the entirety of his body in whatever attribute he pleases. But anyways, when it comes to Fire Veil, Shoto would be covering his body in flames as to discourage the thought of physical contact. And with enough intensity behind it, simply being within a certain radius of him could be dangerous to most enemies. In the case of Ice Veil, I imagine something akin to Gaara's Shield of Sand from Naruto, Being able to instinctually stimulate defenses comparable to that of Kirishima's hardening the moment a threat is perceived could be major and keep him out of harm's way in most cases. Next after that, we have the formation of martial weapons. And like we established, right now Shoto is far better with his ice than he is with his fire. And with his ice, Shoto has become proceedingly efficient when it comes to shape manipulation. And so I'm just waiting for him to create things like ice javelins and such, or even for him to manage such a feat with both sides of his quirk by doing so with his fire in a similar fashion to Endeavor. And another department I feel we need to see development from Shoto in would have to be traversal. As a member of our current 1A Big 3, both in terms of popularity and power, Shoto needs to be able to keep up with the likes of Bakugo and Deku. And these are two characters who possess incredible mobility options, and so I'd expect no less from him. Like, I want to see fire-based jet propulsion acting less of a flying tool and instead more like a calculated descent. I'm trying to see him wall run by means of melting the wall's surface, and I want to see him form and skate along ice pathways like Frozone. However, above all else, what we should at this point expect to see from Shoto first and foremost would have to be his mastery over his father's coveted flash fire technique. The sudden cultivation of power and abrupt release of its concentrated essence alone would serve to elevate Shoto's game to unbelievable levels. The flash fire technique is one that may be applied to just about any fire-based move in Shoto's arsenal, which, mind you, are already devastating as it is. And because Shoto has access to his ice as a means of cooling himself down, he would theoretically be capable of utilizing flash fire several times over a short period before completely exhausting himself. And speaking of his ice, who is to say that such manipulation wouldn't be applicable to his ice as well? I mean, the core concept of flash fire is one that Endeavor expresses to Deku in relation to his abilities, so it doesn't seem to be limited to fire exclusively. And with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if it were to be applied to his ice before his fire, considering the current state of his capabilities. With flash fire, Shoto would be turning up the heat well beyond his implied maximum, which would be somewhere around like 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit or something, which would serve to obliterate pretty much anything around him. And if this were to be applied to his ice, he'd probably cool the surrounding air down to a bone-chilling degree, incapacitating all surrounding life. And I mean, the simple thought of heaven-piercing ice wall being released any faster than it already is, or becoming any bigger than it already is just ungodly to me. So yeah, this guy Shoto will be able to beat out most pro heroes once he gets this going. Despite being one of the faces of the series and a testament to the overall potential of Class 1A, Shoto is one to develop subtly, so we'll probably have to keep our eyes peeled for most of his growth to come. And to be honest with you, creating this video only made me all the more excited to see Shoto become more powerful and reach his utmost potential. I'm trying to see the power that Endeavor was willing to give up his humanity for. Now, although Endeavor may have gone about it in some pretty heinous ways, you have to admit that he really did the damn thing when it came to optimizing this quirk, as it's not too hard to see how this could potentially at some point surpass that of our current #1 hero. But yeah, this has been the quirk evolution of Todoroki Shoto. Hopefully this video managed to intrigue and or entertain you enough to stick around for more videos from us, because when it comes to some of the absolute best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. In the comments, let us know which edition we described that you would be most excited to see come to fruition, and what else you might add to all of this. And be sure to let us know what character you'd like to receive this sort of coverage with in the next installment. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.